That'd be a question best asked to the district than to me, sir.
So, sir, you're leasing them the ground for $1. They're going to generate a development of 160 acres of some of the most prime real estate in the country. And you don't think that they're going to generate revenue, or didn't think to ask, are they going to generate revenue? And possibly that some of that revenue should be going back to the taxpayers? How would you explain that covering over hundreds of acres of land with solar panels meets your definition of conservation?
That was Matt Rosendale of Montana questioning BLM Director Tracy Manning about their solar panel policies. As you're probably aware, the Biden administration is very anti-fossil fuels when it comes to federal land leasing. What Rosendale is asking about here is a land lease deal in DC, and then an administration proposal to cover land with solar panels. Overall, what Rosendale is trying to point out here is the double standard, or the two-tiered system that they have set up, which is one set of standards for so-called green energy and another set of standards for fossil fuels. And this is not unlike the two-tiered justice system we currently see, which is if you're on Team A, then you're good and you get a pass, and if you're on Team B, you get indicted. But don't worry, they're from the government and they're here to help.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am sorry that I can't see you behind that large stack of regulations that you've presented there. I appreciate you holding this crucial budget hearing today. The BLM plays a vital role in management and facilitation of our land out west, especially in Montana, where BLM land comprises nearly 1/3 of our state. However, under the current radical administration, we witness a harmful trend where BLM's land management decisions are working against the very communities and residents the agencies is meant to serve. Whether it's the lack of leasing opportunities, the war being waged against the coal industry, or the ongoing efforts to restrict access to Montana's productive lands, it's clear to me that despite being from our great state, Director Stone Manning and her agency's priorities are at complete odds with what is in the best interest of Montana. I'm eager to hear from both her and Director Sams about why they believe they deserve a $120 million increase in total funding. Ranking Member Neguse, I am sorry that you were not here to hear the filibuster from Ms. Porter and Mr. Levin about revenue and the income that these lands are supposed to produce. Because what they failed to reference is the fact that capacity and rental fees have been reduced for renewable energy, capacity and rental fees by 80%. By 80%. And that's after they've already been heavily, heavily subsidized by the taxpayers across this nation. Director Sams, speaking of reducing fees, why did the National Park Service relinquish control of RFK Complex instead of leveraging it for our park system's benefit when it was rented to DC for just $1? You want to have conversations about fees? It was rented for $1 to capitalize on the revenue potential instead of the money going to help make a dent in the $22 billion deferred maintenance backlog. That could have easily been a valuable revenue source to support the projects that you're requesting.
Thank you for the question, Congressman. When we looked at this and spoke with the District of Columbia and keeping it within the federal family, we recognize that the district has an opportunity to be able to really take over jurisdiction and shifting administrative responsibility to the district so that they can actually see some better use of it.
And are they going to be collecting revenue for the development of this 160-acre site?
That'd be a question best asked to them than to me, sir.
Excuse me?
That'd be a question best asked to the district than to me, sir.
So, sir, you're leasing them the ground for $1. They're going to generate a development of 160 acres of some of the most prime real estate in the country. And you don't think that they're going to generate revenue, or didn't think to ask, are they going to generate revenue? And possibly that some of that revenue should be going back to the taxpayers so that we could utilize it for our park system?
Sir, it is Congress who will be leasing that to them in the direction of
Based
Congress.
upon the recommendation of the National Park Service. So we don't know about the revenue that the District of Columbia is going to generate from 160 acres, but we are very concerned about someone who's developing the resources to help heat our homes and power our vehicles to push freight across this country. And yet, on the other hand, we're going to reduce the leases and the revenue that's generated by renewables for the capacity and rental fees by 80%. But the District of Columbia is going to make sure that they collect and retain all of the revenue. Director Stone Manning, I hear you talk about the transition to a clean energy economy. And while that may be this administration's goal, it is not the law, especially when it comes to land use. And we continue to hear about the manipulation of policy by rule change, not by law change. And that is very problematic for most of the people that are sitting in here. And quite frankly, it should be disturbing for anybody, Republican or Democrat. We can't have rule changes overriding what the law and the intent of the law was. In your budget testimony, you emphasize the importance of this funding for your clean energy projects. I'm curious to hear how covering a currently productive swath of land with acres of glass for such an unreliable, intermittent use of energy that meets your definition of conservation, especially when compared to the generation of work and management by ranchers and farmers on that land.
Congressman, first of all, it's nice to see somebody from Montana. I know we don't always agree, but Montana pride rises above that, I hope. I think I heard your question to ask.
How would you explain that covering over hundreds of acres of land with solar panels meets your definition of conservation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's why we're working on the Western Solar Plan as we speak, so that we make sure that because it is still development, it's carbon pollution free, but it's still development, that we drive that development to the most appropriate places on the landscape as possible, just like we drive all of our development to the most appropriate landscape.
Okay, so Montana coal producers allocate a significant portion of their revenue annually to reclamation projects. And I've been out on those projects, and they are actually quantifiably and measurably more productive after they have extracted their resources and then do the reclamation efforts. Visiting any of these sites would reveal no trace of past mining activity. Why is this practice, which involves productive use followed by restoration to its original state, more productive, again, not considered land conservation?
Congressman, the concern, of course, with that work is the coal that is burned, right? It's not about the landscape that is reclaimed after the coal is dug up. The concern is about driving our economy towards a clean energy economy.
And again, we continue to hear about going to a clean energy economy, but again, we're superseding the law and the intent of the law and the Taylor Grazing Act and the use of those lands by abusing the rulemaking process. Mr. Chair, thank you so much for my time. I yield back.